Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this final program of Tiverton Public Library's Tales and Tales Community Storytelling Series. Tonight's guest is Wendy Taylor. Wendy is the founder and executive director of Westplace Animal Sanctuary, a nonprofit organization providing medical and nutritional care to farm animals and sanctuary from cruelty and neglect cases, as well as the treatment and release of injured or orphaned wildlife. Wendy began Westplace in memory of her beloved animals who perished in a house fire. From that traumatic experience, she gained the strength and focus to leave the practice of law after 20 years and dedicate her life to improving the lives of animals who have been victims of cruelty, abuse, and neglect. Tonight, Wendy is going to tell us about that personal tragedy from which the sanctuary was created. Then we'll take a virtual tour of Westplace, and then we'll visit with some very special guests.
What is the worst thing that could ever happen to you? Think about it for a second. Now, imagine it actually happened, that your entire world crumbled. What would you do? How would you react? Who would you become? It's February 24th, 2003, and I'm on my way to a meeting on a beautiful winter day, not a care in the world. And then my secretary calls. I can't understand a word. I tell her, slow down, take a deep breath. It can't be that bad. When she starts again, her words are clear as she tells me, your house is on fire. And I think, that's okay. I can fix that. I'm a litigation attorney, the managing partner of my law firm, and I fix everything. It's my job. It's what I do. I arrive to a 3-alarm response. My home is in tatters, smoke pouring everywhere. The Red Cross is on scene because I won't have shelter or clothes for the night. But that's okay. I can fix that. As I'm fighting to get closer, I hear the fire chief yelling, what's left of this house needs to come down. That's okay. I can fix that. Then I look toward my open garage bays and see 9 white sheets lined up in a row. A makeshift morgue on a cold concrete floor. My pets are under those sheets. All of my 4-legged friends are gone. Well, now I can't fix that. Everyone around me is working frantically, but I am standing still. And as the lens on my life pans out, the background noise is dim and everything fades to black. The only thing in focus are those sheets. In this moment, my perfect life as I know it changes forever as the horror of my reality sets in. My world stops, and I do too. Yet everyone around me continues to move at the speed of light. Firefighters are scrambling and police are manning the crowd when a reporter points a camera at my face and asks, how do you feel? How do I feel? How would anyone feel? As they're searching for a soundbite about the worst moment of my life, officials pull me aside to survey what's left of the house. Fallen ceilings, broken windows, scorched belongings, everything dripping. A gaping hole in the foyer where a firefighter fell through the floor. A soot outline of my dog in a bathtub where she crawled to try to escape the noise. An open wall in a room being renovated where one of my cats hid out of fear. I couldn't fix them. For the first time, I couldn't make something right, and I didn't know how to handle that. I couldn't fix them. I was capsized. I was upside down inside my own head with no idea what to do next or how to move on. I couldn't be the hero that I always tried to be for others, and I wasn't much at all in the seconds or the minutes or the hours that followed. I was broken. I was helpless. And after everyone cleared the scene, I was lost, as everything I had was lost. But time has a funny way of keeping pace, as the next morning was a whirlwind, and I still had a law firm to run, and I had to find housing, and the insurance company started its investigation, and the building inspector wanted to speak, and the fire chief needed to finalize his report, and dumpsters had to be rented, and contractors had to be hired, and I kept waiting for that last and. And though they kept coming, they were all fixable, but for one, the only one that really mattered. What mattered was I needed to grab a shovel. I needed to bundle up. I needed to dig 9 graves. I needed to carry my pets one by one down to their final resting place in a private funeral procession. So there I was, my state of things. The months ticked on. I dealt with life, rebuilt the house, tried to fight my way back to normal. But through it all, I wasn't living. I was just surviving. And surviving wasn't good enough. I needed to find a way to thrive. A friend suggested I donate to an animal organization. A good idea, but too small, temporary, a quick fix. That wasn't enough to make it right. That wasn't enough to make me right. My world was off its axis, and I just didn't need to write it. I needed to rewrite it. Because our lives are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we choose to handle what we are handed. Was I given a fate, or was I given an opportunity to make a difference, to change my purpose, to enhance my value? So I started a little nonprofit called Westplace Animal Sanctuary to give animals a second chance at life. Since I wasn't ready to handle cats and dogs, I started with wildlife, and soon the baby birds started rolling in. But here's the thing with baby birds. They need to eat every 15 minutes from sun up till sundown. And they let you know when you are even 1 second late by screaming a cacophony of noise and chirps. Well, that didn't fit into my schedule. That doesn't fit into anybody's schedule. So each morning, I loaded them up in their binnies and put them onto my legal cart and rolled them into my office. And since there was rarely a time when I wasn't taking a deposition or preparing for trial, I taught my staff how to feed them. And my law partner thought I was crazy. And don't get me wrong, looking back, it was definitely a little crazy. But crazy should never stop you. After that, I expanded the organization to help farm animals from abuse, neglect, and cruelty cases. And you've all heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. Well, truer words were never spoken as I became we, and the need for volunteers blossomed and we grew exponentially. A few years later, I came home from work late one night and my husband said, "You don't realize how big Westplace has gotten. You can't manage it from your law firm anymore. You need to pick one." I think he was hoping I would pick the one where I got the really big paycheck, or that my ego wouldn't let me leave the law. But once it was out there, he couldn't take it back, even if he realized it was the dumbest thing he ever said. Because in that moment, I knew I was about to start navigating my life with a brand new chart. In a perfect world, we would live our lives without scars and heartache, but that's not reality. In reality, stuff happens, and when it happens, the true test of a human being is to try to find out what you are worth. My worth arose from tragedy, an unexpected way for my tides to turn and my heading to change. And many of you have been through tragedy as well. If you haven't, then all things willing, nothing bad ever happens to you. But you don't have to wait for a tragedy to be your catalyst. Not having one is even more reason to get started. Now, you may not run out and start your own nonprofit like I did, but you don't have to. You likely can't quit a good paying job like I did, but you don't have to. You might not even have more than an hour a week to give, but you don't have to. All you have to do is ask yourself, do I believe in something bigger than me? In helping someone other than me? Each and every one of you has a passion or a talent or a gift within you. As William Shakespeare said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. How about an example? Do any of you play the guitar, even really badly? Then find an hour to play, albeit in this day and age remotely, for the children at a cancer ward at a hospital, or for the elderly at a nursing home. Just 1 hour a week. You have 168 of them, and you'll still have 167 left. You won't just entertain those people, you will touch their souls. And in turn, they'll touch yours. It's a great feeling. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, it's hard to find even an hour. Maybe you run your own business like I did. Well, is there a part of that business that can do good? And I get it. You may be thinking about your performance, your growth, your competition, your bottom line. Companies call that the sustainability index. But you can't just look at your professional bottom line. You have to look at your personal bottom line. And I challenge you to see if yours is sustainable. If it's not, it can be. When you embrace your cause and you turn that cause into action and you use your actions to make a difference, you'll make a difference to so many around you, and it will enhance your value. My value used to come from winning a case or breaking someone down at a deposition. But now, strangers come up to me and hug me and thank me, and I realize that my true value comes from those hugs, from that thanks. I tell you, that's the best humanity has to offer, and it's better than anything I have ever experienced. And you can have that too, and it will keep getting better. Here at the sanctuary, I am always amazed that people are willing to give of themselves so selflessly to a cause that I created, to one that I thought only mattered to me. And then I watch some of them interact with our animals, and I realize something. There's a symbiosis. Our volunteers need our animals as much as our rescues need our volunteers. It turns out we have our own group of damaged humans leaning on our broken animals so that they too can heal from whatever burdens them in their life. You give of yourself, and not only will you make a difference, you enhance your value, and you'll realize that you too have your own symbiosis. Everybody has a plan in life. I had a plan. I had my dream house, my dream job, my dream life. I couldn't have asked for anything more. What happened to me certainly was not my life's plan. But if we plan our lives with our sails rigged so tight, when a gust of wind comes along, we might just heel over. And if we can't figure out to tread water, we might not survive it. Every good sailor knows that they need to accommodate for unexpected changes and for course correction. I'm still not certain if I set my new course or if my new course was readjusted for me. But changing the lives of animals has forever changed my life. Becoming a lawyer and defending clients was a good goal, but becoming a defender of those who can't speak for themselves was the right goal. When I left my law practice and reset my compass, my colleagues acted as if my greatest achievements were already behind me, as if my life went from having meaning to disappearing into a state of inconsequential oblivion. But how wrong they were. Because it's not just a question of how you right your ship. It's a question of what legacy you choose to leave behind. What you do for yourself is gone when you're gone, but what you do for others will remain behind as your legacy. Winston Churchill got it right when he said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." I don't want to be remembered for what I got. I want to be remembered for what I gave. I want to be remembered for what kind of impact I can have while I'm still here. You've all heard the term carbon footprint, and we all talk about how small ours can be. But I want you to think about your impact footprint and start questioning how big that can be. The dozens of people that volunteer with me each week can answer that question for themselves, and you can too. We get one life to live. We need to make sure that what we do with it is enough. If you're just checking the boxes or going through the motions or punching the clock, that's not enough. That's not sustainable. You need to make it count. You need to leave your impact. You need to enhance your value. And all you need is to be inspired. And if my story doesn't inspire you, find one that does, and then go make your own story. And make sure that it is a really good story to tell. Your life, your value, your legacy. The choice is yours. I can't promise you that it's going to be easy, but I can promise you that it's going to be worth it. And I hope that when you set your sail, you find your true north. So we're back, and we are going to take a tour around the sanctuary, and we're going to talk to some of the rescues. So this is Jack. He's taking a nap, but he's very talkative. He has a sister named Diane, Jack and Diane, and she's out and about right now. But Jack and Diane came from one of the cases that we normally focus on, which I talked about earlier, cruelty, neglect, and abuse. And Jack and Diane came from a place in Johnston. Neighbors were reporting that they saw no owner coming to feed the pigs or give water to the pigs for at least 3 days at a time, over and over and over again. And the DEM put up game cams, and they were able to prove that that was the case. So once they were able to show that these poor piggies were left out with no shelter, it was February. They were getting fed every 3 days, and it was stale donuts and bread. So they were just getting carbs and sugar. They were morbidly obese. And even though the person put water down for them in February, the water froze after a couple of hours. So the Johnston police came in, and they seized Jack and Diane, and they sent them temporarily to the Rhode Island SPCA, who called us, and we said, yes, we will step in and intervene and take over. Because they were morbidly obese, and a couple of other issues that they had trouble walking. They actually couldn't see. The folds on his face were so fat that he couldn't open his eyes. So he wasn't blind. He does have eyesight. He couldn't physically open his eyes. So when they got here, we were told they were hospice care only. Basically, they were coming here to pass away. And we said, that's not good enough for us. That's not what we do. What we do is we rehabilitate these animals from these horrible situations. So we put them on an exercise program, a nutritional program, and a skin conditioning program. So Jack has an exercise ball, and Diane gets walked around the property, and we bought them a giant refrigerator that's basically nicer than any refrigerator I've ever seen, and they get a week's worth of fresh produce, fresh vegetables and fresh fruits, and they're set up for the week, and their food is made to order. Each one of them has lost about 30 pounds, and their skin conditioning program consists of a salt scrub and coconut oil massage. And if we get closer, we can see that because of all of that really hard work by our volunteers, that look at all this beautiful hair that is grown back on Jack's head. His whole body now has hair, and it's back to being a really healthy black Vietnamese pig color. They were ashen gray when they came, and in really, really bad condition. But the best part of the story is that was 2.5 years ago. And Jack and Diane did not pass away. They just continue to get better and better every single day that they're with us. And we love you so much, Jack. We're going to let you get back to sleep as we go on to see somebody else, okay? All right. Let's go around the corner, and we'll see who else is waiting for us. Sadie. Hi, Sadie. All right, everybody, this is Sadie. She is one of our most beloved animals here. She's very sweet. For those of you that might remember, Sadie came from the 2016 Westport case. It was basically called the worst case of animal neglect in the Northeast, in the history of the Northeast. And we can continue to follow Sadie around. She's much more interesting to watch than I am. And she and her sister, and I guess we're gonna go find her right now. There she is, Maggie. And we call them sisters. We don't actually know if they are, but they were in the same pen. And they were found at what's called a tenant farm. And a tenant farm is a large parcel of property that's been subdivided many, many times. And in this case, 19 different subparcels. And they were both found in the same parcel. The small little parcels were rented out for a monthly rent. And it was basically don't ask, don't tell, no questions asked. There were broken down cars, broken down washing machines and refrigerators, a pile of unprocessed clamshells. There was broken glass, and there were 1,400 farm animals found in a state of, well, death or dying. And the ASPCA came in. It was much too big of a case for the town of Westport for the animal control officer. It was too big of a case for the Boston Animal Rescue League. So the National ASPCA came in and they went and they contacted a bunch of small nonprofits like ours to come in and help. So I spent 5.5 months alongside the ASPCA, and we saved 1,100 of the 1,400 animals. Colby's also one of them. We'll see him in a little bit. He was just a lamb when it happened. He was just born when it happened. So out of the 1,100 animals that survived, we took in 67 of those animals. And many of those 67 are still alive. It was 5 years ago, but they're still alive and they're still with us now. So Maggie, Colby, Sadie. And what's interesting about these animals, and this again goes to show you why we're a sanctuary and not a rescue. Cats and dogs don't come in and then get adopted out a week later or a month later. These farm animals that come in stay with us for the rest of their lives. And there are multiple reasons why. They've come from human mistakes and human neglect and human cruelty. We can never guarantee that that wouldn't happen again if we adopt them out. But the bigger reason is an animal like Sadie over here, when she was found, she had 5 different things wrong with her. She had bilateral conjunctivitis, she had an upper respiratory infection and pneumonia at the same time. She had what's called scabby mouth, which is exactly what it sounds like. And she also, and I'll demonstrate on Maggie, she was disbudded improperly. So when her horns start to grow in, they grow in facing her skull. And that could actually cause her severe pain, infection, and death. So we've actually had to remove her horns multiple times just since she's been here. And because of all of her multiple medical conditions that flare up on occasion, Sadie has a whole shelf of medicine just for her. So that's another reason why, because we're taking in what we'll say is the worst of the worst, they need lifetime care. We can't turn these animals around and adopt them out to anyone else. And we've been asked, Maggie and Sadie are a big hit. And we've been asked if they're up for adoption, and unfortunately, because of what they went through, we need to make sure that humans don't make mistakes with them again. So they're going to spend the rest of their lives here in sanctuary.
We do have some questions from the audience coming in. The first one, someone is asking if Westplace is looking for volunteers and what kinds of jobs do they do?
That's a great question, and we can talk about that while we head down to the horses. Yes, we always look for volunteers. Obviously, kind of the thing that everybody wants to do is animal care, but that's not all we need. We have honestly everything you can imagine. So the best thing to do is, if you know you're interested in animal care, or you're interested in being a green thumb, or you're interested in handy person carpentry work, that's great, or administrative back office work, that's great. You can call us if you've got that skill set or you're willing to learn. We're happy to teach you. There are other things though. So what is best to do is we'll have a conversation. You can give myself or our operations manager a call, and you never realize what kind of skill set you have that we can actually use. So for example, we have some people that just craft things for our gift shop. We have an in-house gift shop that opens when we do our open houses, and we also just launched our online Etsy shop. So some of our great volunteers are just making really good homemade products for us, and they're really great. They run the gamut from stained glass to sketchings to photos to alpaca hats to other sewn items to keychains to some jewelry. The list goes on. Anything that looks like it would vibe here with Westplace and what we do, we'd be happy to have. So anything you can think of. We have people that sew our horse blankets. They've got a commercial sewing machine. Any skill you have is a skill we can put to good use. So give us a call if you're interested. Let's talk about some mini horses. So if we can get a good video of these two beautiful ladies' little faces. And they are not camera shy. This is Gracie and Gabby, and they came to us only about 2 weeks ago. We're actually really impressed how quickly they've settled in and seem like they're at home. This was the first time we did something that's called an auction intercept. So someone can no longer take care of their animals, and instead of trying to find a place to adopt them, they send them to auction. And that's one way to get rid of the animals. So there's an organization down in Pennsylvania that actually will intercept horses and other animals on the way to auction and reach out to different sanctuaries to see if we would be able to help. So it's the first time we ever did an auction intercept. It was a multi-organization undertaking. It was really interesting. Usually the local ACOs and police and the local SPCAs keep us busy enough. But with COVID, people have really fallen onto hard times, and unfortunately, when they're looking to get rid of what they no longer want, it just becomes a burden or a problem for them. And their quick answer is an auction or a kill pen. And we were happy that we were able to get these girls before they hit the auction, and we were able to avoid them. So you may notice that they're in a different pasture from Sadie and Maggie and Colby over there. They're actually in a different pasture from everyone. And the reason why is these girls are 12 years old, which is still very young. Many horses can live to be 40 or 45. We also have 2 donkeys, and we're gonna meet them in a minute. They have not yet been castrated. So the last thing we need is a little too much love happening here. We make a point of all of our males get gelded or castrated, and since that has not happened yet, we're keeping these girls separate. If a donkey and a horse had a baby, it would be a mule. If a mini donkey, like you'll meet, and a mini horse, like you see here, had a baby, it would be a mini mule. And don't get me wrong, that would be the cutest little animal on the planet. But if we take up space with an animal that gets born here, we can't help other animals in need. So we're gonna protect these girls, and they'll get to make their love connections after the boys are taken care of in a month or so. So speaking of them, let's go find them.
Another person is asking, how is Westplace funded?
As executive director, that's a lot of what I do. Honestly, I have the worst job here, and I tell everybody that all the time. I would rather be mucking stalls. I would rather be working in the greenhouses. I would rather be interacting with the animals. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of funding to run a place like this. Food, bedding, medications, hospitalizations, even just our very small staff. We're mostly volunteer run, but we do have a minimal staff, and that takes a lot as well. And our budget goes up and up and up every year. We started 14 years ago, and I think we were in the single thousand digits back then. And now we're in the hundreds of thousands, multiple hundreds of thousands. And it's just because we keep getting bigger, we keep helping more animals, the cost of everything keeps going up. Food goes up, lumber goes up. We need to build additions to some of our buildings. Some of our buildings are 14 years old, and they're starting to show wear and tear. We need to be able to fix that. So I do a lot of fundraising. I do all the grant writing. I do a lot of donor development and donor interaction. And we are not funded federally, nor are we funded by the state. All of the foundations that fund us are private, and they're amazing. They're a big help. What's also amazing, though, is just individual people like you that decide that you're able and willing to give to a place like this so we can keep doing what we do. We do have two contracts with 2 towns for their lost dogs. I don't know if you're all familiar with the fact that Tiverton and Little Compton here don't have kennels of their own. They're not big enough. So we actually have a contract to take in all of the lost dogs, and we help those lost dogs get back home. And that prevents these two towns from having to create their own municipal kennels, which can be millions of dollars. So we do that for them on a yearly basis. And we're gonna say hi to Maggie and Sadie again while we turn around and see some other animals. So, hi Colby. This right here, being a super smart little guy taking a nap in the shade, this is Zane. And I want to introduce you to the rest of his family, and then we'll talk about them. So right over here is Zane's brother. This is Xander. This is their mom, Shaw. And this is their dad, Barnaby. Hi, Lovey. And the reason why I want to introduce them all together is they truly are a family. So we talked about the Westport case. And we talked about Colby and Maggie and Sadie being from that case. Shaw is actually Colby's sister. She was also a lamb. She had just been born when the case happened. So we got them very young, and they've grown up here, and they're about 5 years old now. And a couple of years ago, this little guy, Barnaby, he's not so little now, but he was picked up by some really nice police officers at the East Providence Police Department. They had gone to answer another call at a local house, and they're animal lovers, and they heard a lamb baaing, and they knew what it was. And so they went to investigate, and sure enough, at 20 days old, super tiny, he was out in a little tiny pen. He was in the cold. It was, once again, it's always late winter when these cases happen, early spring. And he was in the cold with no food and no water, and the police picked him up and they knocked on the door and no one answered. So they took him to the dispatcher's desk and they sat him on the desk, and then they sent me a video of him just chewing on cud, and they said, "Can you help? How can we say no to a 20-day-old lamb that's sitting on the dispatcher's desk looking adorable with all his spots?" So we brought Barnaby here. And because he had been malnourished and underfed, and he was in horrible conditions, he did have a respiratory infection. And so I bottle fed him, even though he was 20 days old. We bottle fed him. We had a jacket on him. We had heating lamps. He had a big quilt on him to keep him warm while he grew up. So he got to be about 8 months old, and it was time for him to get castrated. And the vet postponed it for a week. And this is where you can tell we're not farmers, we're farm animal rehabilitators, because we didn't realize that an 8-month-old lamb having a delay of 1 week to get castrated would end up getting a little too sweet on my favorite girl, Shaw here. And Barnaby gets fixed, and all of a sudden Shaw just starts getting really, really, really fat. And we research it, and I look it up, and we look for all the signs and symptoms of her being pregnant, and sure enough, she is. So, very nervously, we prepared for these births, and we didn't know how many lambs she was pregnant with. Even the vet came and couldn't hear the extra heartbeats, but that's not uncommon to not be able to hear them. So, one day, Shaw goes and gives birth by herself to Zane over there, that beautiful tan boy down there. And what the rule of thumb is if there are going to be multiple births, the second lamb comes about 45 minutes later. Well, 2.5 hours later, it's now pitch dark, she's in the stall and she's cleaning Zane and licking him and being a mom, and it's really great. And we're really happy. And then I see her tail move. And out of her tail, I see this sweet little baby nose and one hoof. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know if he's going to be okay. I don't know if he's alive. And I realized that Shaw is not pushing and she's not helping. And, yep. And if you can see that in the background, that is Lovey and Etta, and Those two girls are very good friends, and they literally do that all the time. That is male behavior, but female alpaca are actually famous for also exhibiting the male behaviors, and that's how they play together. So, I decided, oh hi, this is Zane, oh my baby. Hi buddy, you came over to listen to the story about how you were both born? So, I had never birthed an animal before, didn't know how to do it. Crossed my fingers, held my breath, and had to go in and rearrange him. He only had one hoof in the right position. Tried to find his other one, I couldn't. He wasn't breathing. I just yanked him out, and thank God he was alive. He was temporarily paralyzed because he had been in the birth canal for so long. So Shaw fed Zane for the first 2 days, which is super important because they need to get what's called colostrum. And if they don't get that, they can either perish or they can have a lot of health issues as they grow up. So since Xander was paralyzed and he couldn't walk for a couple of days, I actually bottle fed him. So Shaw and I stuck together in the stall for a couple of days, and we made sure that these two handsome guys grew up to be really, really beautiful sheep, and we wouldn't trade them for the world. They absolutely deserve to be here. And these four honestly have created the most beautiful family. They are always together. They're usually napping on top of each other when the weather is not so hot. But the thing that gets to me every day is Shaw was always a happy girl. But she has a look of contentment on her face that I had never seen before Zane and Xander were born. And it's just one of those moments that it's always so moving and so beautiful, is to see how content and how happy she is. And I just love that. I love seeing that every day on her. And I'm so happy for them. Mwah! All right, we're gonna go talk to some donkeys. How about that? Okay.
One of the viewers says that they sponsor Eli the Duck on behalf of their mom.
Oh, yay! Hi, Eli's a sponsor. So, yeah, Eli is one of our ducks, and he came in from the Wild Bird Fund in New York City. We help out both the Rhode Island Wildlife Clinic and the New York City Wildlife Clinic. They can't keep domestic animals, and they get a lot of domestic birds that are found out in the wild. And we'll see a couple of those later on. So it's so great to have you on this. Thank you for the sponsorship, and it's great to bring that up because monthly animal sponsorships, not only is that really important to us, and that helps us with fundraising and giving the animals everything they need, but it's such a good way to connect with a particular animal. So for example, if anyone sponsored Shaw, and she does have an amazing sponsor, that person gets invited out to do a private meet and greet with Shaw, and we can do a photo shoot. And once or twice a year, they are updated with photos and stories about Shaw. And of course, at the end of the year, they are given a tax-deductible letter for tax purposes. And we also invite our animal sponsors to one of our yearly open houses, and we do 3 of those a year. So we give a free ticket so they can come and say hi to their animal as well. So monthly sponsorships are an amazing way to really feel like not only are you helping us, but you know that you're making a difference for one specific animal. So that's awesome. Hopefully we'll get some more animal sponsors. Let's go find these donkeys. First, I couldn't find him, so he's like a ninja. This is Charles. He's a mini donkey, and he just turned 1 year old last week. And his buddy companion over there is Timothy, and he is about 8 or 9 months old. He's a standard donkey, but the story with Charles and Timothy is a little bit like the story with the mini horses, except worse. So Timothy actually was sent to a kill pen. He wasn't intercepted before he got there. And as a baby, he saw, come here, buddy, we're talking about you. As a baby, he saw it all. He saw everything that goes wrong in those kill pens. He saw other animals around him perish and not make it. And then when he was rescued from that kill pen, they then go from the pen to an off-site temporary holding facility for an examination. They then get transported to wherever they're going, in their case up here to New England. They then land at another organization. A big one around here is called Peace for Ponies, and they do a great job of donkey rescue. And then once they get established and they get trained a little bit, then they'll get adopted out, or they will come to other organizations. So we were asked to step in and see if we could take these two boys, because the more other organizations can step in and help out a place like that, the more rescue they can actually do. So Charles was one of the lucky ones. He actually wasn't born. He was in utero when his mom was in the kill pen, and he was actually born here after the transport and after he arrived at Peace for Ponies. So Charles grew up a little bit there, and once he was able to be weaned from his mom, we were asked if we were able to take him. And we love him. He's a goofball. He's usually dirty, but he's got a great life. And fortunately for him, even his mom going through the kill pen, and I heard all the stories about what she experienced. Fortunately, he didn't have to experience that. He got to get born around a lot of love, and he gets to see love every day. Now, Timothy, on the other hand, not only did he see a lot because he was alive, but he was very, very sick. The minute he was pulled from the kill pen, he was sent to the hospital. He had multiple medical issues, and he was touch and go for a long time. And he was in the hospital for a while, and they didn't think he was going to make it. So the other thing that happened was when he and his mom got pulled from the kill pen, they got separated. And his mom got sent somewhere else, and he got sent somewhere alone. So what happened was another donkey's baby got sent with Timothy's mom, and Timothy got sent with another mom. So he was actually raised by a foster mom. So they were very lucky. He was very lucky that at least another mom that was able to feed him and give him milk was actually put with him. Otherwise, he probably would not have survived, because there would have been no one to feed him, and he wouldn't have been able to make the trip. It's a very long trip from Texas to New England. All right, so we will take a little walk around at the sanctuary, and we're gonna go quickly past our greenhouses and some of the other things that we do around here. So come on out. We've got 8 acres here. We have 9 rotational grazing pastures, and we do grow a lot of our food for the animals. So we have 3 working greenhouses here, and they do run all year round. Our green thumbs work all year round. And they're the lucky ones, because it's 70 degrees in there in February, and we're all outside freezing, and they're in there in their t-shirts sweating. But we provide some of the food to try to keep costs down for our animals. We also have an herb greenhouse that a lot of our animals like some of the herbs that we grow. Behind that, we have a vineyard. We have some hops plants. We have a wildlife berry garden where we show our wildlife rescues what they're going to be eating before they leave here. And behind that, we have an orchard. So another thing that is really important here at Westplace is our pond. People think that the barn is the hub of everything we do, but the pond is just as important. All of our waterfowl are rescued fish from the Westport case, and rescued turtles all call this home every day during the day. This runs 365 days a year, multiple pumps and aerators, and it is a vital source of nutrients and everything else that our animals need, especially our waterfowl, because they need to be able to bathe. The way they stay waterproof is they're going to get wet. Then what they're going to do is they're going to reach behind them under their tail, and they get a little bit of what we'll call waterproofing material. They have a little sack under their tail, and they take that in their beak, and as they're drying, as they're flicking the water off, they're replacing it with that oil, and that oil is going to be what waterproofs them. So now we're in our exotic bird pen, and as you can see here, we've got a peacock. We have 5, and 4 of them are actually from the Westport case of 2016. As I said, we took in 67 animals, so that was a lot of rescues in one day. That's Porter, and his brothers are Percy, Parker, and Peyton, and our 5th peacock is Prescott, and we'll see them in a second. But before we go into the building, we'll pan over here and see these adorable partridges. We love partridges. We did get some from the Westport case. Unfortunately, partridges only live to be about 4 years old. So they did pass away a little while ago, but it just so happens that some other partridges were in need of permanent housing. So we've got Beatty and Copo and Chuki.
Is there anything else you'd like to make sure we know before we wrap up?
Oh, definitely. I think that one of the important things to know is you can find out anything about us at westplace.org. You can reach out to us at 401-228-6800. And if you like the little brief tour that we gave you today, the best way to see it, sign up for one of our open houses or book a private tour or get involved with us by volunteering. There's a lot of ways that you can come out and actually get to meet these animals and spend some time with these animals. All right, so we've got the rest of the peacocks, and then we've got a couple of really special, handsome guys. The white and black bird is called a Lady Amherst pheasant, and his name is Ziggy. And the beautiful red one that just jumped next to him is a golden pheasant, also known as a Chinese pheasant. His name is Fez, and he actually just got that coloring. He came to us as a baby. So he was brown when he came in, and he just did his first male molt. And this is an incredible building that we built for these really special, incredible, exotic animals. So thank you everyone for joining us at Westplace. We really appreciate it. That wraps up our time, and we hope we'll hear from you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Wendy, thank you so much. This was wonderful. It was great to see the animals and the property. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We hope you've enjoyed this storytelling series. It's been an absolute pleasure for us to put that together for you. You should receive a follow-up message from me in the coming days with some additional information about tonight's presentation and a request for your feedback. I hope you will provide your feedback. This program is part of our adult summer library experience. If you submit a review of this program or any library offerings this summer, you'll be entered for a chance to win weekly and grand prizes all summer long. You can fill out a paper review slip at the library or submit a review online at tivertonlibrary.org. Wendy, again, thank you so much for being part of our series. It's been a great conclusion to our series. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a great night, everyone. Stay well.